Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the bonus episode of my mom's birthday knife build series, where we're going to be making a leather sheath. This is literally the first sheath I've ever made, so you're going to be figuring it out along with me. Let's go. Alright. We've got this. It's a pretty good approximation of the blade that we're using. This is what we're going to make the bulk of the sheath out of, because it matches the handle better than anything else I have. And then we're gonna use this thicker stuff for the welt. That's the part that sits in the sandwich to stop the blade from cutting the thread. For this sheath, we're gonna be doing a sandwich style. So there's two styles of sheaths. There's taco style and there's sandwich style. Taco style, you would cut one big piece that fits both halves and then fold it over. Sandwich style, we're gonna be cutting two pieces and then sewing them together. Does that make sense? And basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna trace it once facing this way. I'm gonna flip it, give a little bit of an allowance. Trace it this way. What we're gonna do is we're gonna have it just butt against the top of the handle, basically. Does that make sense? Now that the blade is traced, we have to enlarge that shape so that the leather has enough real estate for the stitching. I'm shooting for about 1/4 of an inch here, but it's not an exact science. So I have to decide what I want to do down here at the heel. I think I'm just going to keep tracing rather than just go all the way down. Then we do the same thing on the other side. Like I said in the intro, I have no leatherworking experience whatsoever. So if anybody has any channels or tutorials that they have liked or have learned things from, drop them in the comments down below. I'd love to check out some more information. Now we cut with a knife that I made. Okay, so we got these two cut out. The next thing we have to do is we have to get that thicker leather out and cut just this outline, basically, to be the welt. I really wish that I could give you guys some information on what these leathers are that I'm using, but honestly, I don't know. They were in this shop before I started working here, and they'll probably be here after I leave. Alright, you see the vision?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do this a little bit long down here so that we can grind it down to match. Alright, ready? So we have our welt, we have our two sandwich pieces. Oh, look how good that fits. Oh, I'm a genius. And then that will go on top. So the next thing we have to do, we have to grind this to match the distal taper of the knife blade so that it's a little bit thinner up here and so that it's a little bit thinner down at the edge. I think we grind, I have to do some research, but I think we grind this top layer off and then contact cement it in and then punch our holes, do our stitching, clean it up on the grinder. But we're in a good spot. All right, we're gonna grind this a little bit with a relatively new 120. We would rather have the sheath be a little bit on the small side so that it's a tight friction fit rather than being too big. And right now this stuff is really thick. So we're gonna take it down mostly on this side, but also a little bit up here. Now what I've done here is I've taped the welt to a block of wood to try to grind in the distal taper, but I probably wouldn't do that again because the tape gives it a little bit of unevenness. Maybe I would glue it. I don't know. Again, suggestions are welcome. Here I'm just cleaning up some of those inside edges.
All right, that's pretty good. Now we're gonna bring it over here. I'm gonna clean up all the little corners with this tool. I don't remember what it's called. If anybody knows, drop it in the comments. It's got the two little forks with the little tiny blade in the middle. It's for rounding over the corners. So basically, we just put it on here and then round over the corners. I got the inside edges here cleaned up. Now it's time for the contact cement. Basically, we're gonna load this up. We're gonna load all of them up, and then we're gonna clamp it together, let it sit overnight, and then we can come back and do the stitching.
From what I understand, the reason you do the contact cement is sort of twofold. One, it lets everything stick into place before you get the stitching so that you're not fiddling with trying to keep stuff lined up as you're doing the stitching. The second reason is if your stitching fails, the contact cement is there as kind of a fail-safe. It's kind of like using epoxy and Corby bolts on a knife handle, right? The Corby bolts probably would be good enough on their own, but the epoxy just gives an extra level of security. Now, unfortunately, my cameraman was not able to be with me for my second day of working on this sheath. That's why this has been relegated to a bonus episode instead of a mainline episode. You're about to see in a moment that for the second day, I had to just record everything by myself. So if you share this with a friend, subscribe, like, do all that stuff, help me blow up, maybe I can afford a cameraman who isn't my high school brother. All jokes aside, making videos is hard, and I'm very grateful to him for everything that he contributes. I don't know if you guys know this. He's my cameraman. He also does most of my editing. He's a big part of this channel, so thanks, Adam. Unfortunately, some of these clamps did leave some little indentations in the top and bottom layers of the leather. So if I was doing this again, I would use some kind of buffer between my clamps and my actual sheath, whether it was a piece of sacrificial leather or something like that. I had to struggle a little bit to get the blade out of the clamps, but
it worked, kind of.
You only sent the CA to be fine.
Yeah.
It's day 2, we're all glued up. This thing is starting to look like a sheath. First step is to take it to the grinder and clean up all the edges so that everything is flush and even. Grinding leather does not smell great. I don't recommend doing this without some kind of mask or respirator or something. Here it is all squared up. Of course, there's a little bit of burning on the edges, but that's going to get fixed when we do a little bit more sanding and grinding and burnishing and all that stuff. Right now, though, I'm going to use my digital calipers to mark the line that I'm going to try to punch my holes on. I know there is a tool for this, but I don't have one, and this worked just fine in a pinch. It's time to mark my stitch holes. This little 4-pronged stitch hole marker thingy came from Hobby Lobby. Next time I do this, I won't set my tripod up on the same table that I'm hammering on. That's my bad. With all our stitch holes marked, it's time to take it to the drill press and actually turn them into holes. Now, I should not have used a real drill bit here. That was a mistake. I've since learned that you should chuck up a nail and use that to punch your holes rather than a real bit. Before I actually go to do my stitching, though, I'm going to go ahead and clean up all of the edges. I'm doing literally every corner that is on this piece, basically, because I want it to be nice and smooth. I don't want there to be any little sharp spots or hang-ups or anything. Something about using this tool just scratches an itch somewhere deep in my brain. Getting those little stringy pieces off the ends, I love it. Next up, we're going to take this wooden burnishing tool and just rub down all the edges. This is kind of like sanding, I guess, but for leather. I guess it's supposed to make it shiny or something. I don't really know. I'm not a leather worker. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and dye the edges using some black wood stain. They make leather dye, but it's oil-based, just like this wood stain, and honestly, it worked in a pinch.
I'm about a third of the way done with the stitching, and it's kind of rough, but that's what I get for my first sheath, so I'll take it. And here's a time lapse of me doing more stitching.
Doing this project gave me a lot of respect for people who do a lot of leather work. I know knife makers that do a custom leather sheath for every single knife they make, and honestly, I can't even imagine. My boss has a leather worker that does sheaths for my production knives, but she has a big fancy leather sewing machine, so she doesn't have to do any of this hand stitching garbage. If I was going to be doing sheaths on a regular basis, I definitely would want some kind of leather sewing machine. But for this, for a gift, for a one-off, I was happy to do it by hand. That's not to say that it didn't take forever, though. I think all in all, the stitching alone took me probably 2.5 or 3 hours, something like that. My threads kept getting tangled up. I kept having to pull stuff apart and redo stuff, and it was a mess.
All right, we've got the stitch all the way done. It looks better on this side. It's fine, it's a gift. And it's my first sheath. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna back stitch like 2.5 stitches and then tie it off. So let's do it.
All I'm doing here is stitching backwards over the stitches that I already did. I'm doing 2 holes on the left side and 3 holes on the right side so that the 2 strings come out on the same side and I can then tie them together.
All right, so that's 2.5 stitches through the back. Now we're gonna tie it off and snip it.
When I was starting my stitching, I was actually really scared about not having enough thread to make it all the way around. And it was really close. I think I had maybe 8 or 10 inches on each side to cut off at the end, which compared to how much I started, that's a pretty good estimate.
So there we go, that's the end. I'm still gonna trim that down a little bit. So when I did this, I figured I would leave the white for some contrast, but it's just so wonky on this side that I think I'm just gonna go ahead and dye the string black too. And I think that will look best.
Here it is, in all its finished glory, the finished knife and the finished sheath together. Here you can see it's a tight enough friction fit that it's not gonna just slip out. I was really happy with how the fit turned out. But it slips off without very much force, which is pretty much perfect fit for a sheath. I hope you guys enjoyed this series, and I'll see you in the next one.